What's up guys, Scarlett here, and I hope you're having a good day today. Today we're going to talk about Andrew Garfield opening up more about abandoning the project TASM 3 and as well as Tom Holland cameo in Venom. Before I start the video, I talk a lot of Spider-Man stuff but also general Marvel and DC news, so if that sounds good to you, hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on so you don't miss any future uploads. So first, we'll talk about Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield recently did an interview with GQ and he opens up about TASM 3 and doing No Way Home as well. GQ said to Andrew Garfield that his Spider-Man career ended sooner than he would have expected, referring to the cancellation of TASM 3, and also asked did it feel like he was finally closing a circle by coming back to that role, referring to No Way Home. Andrew Garfield replied saying he didn't know if he had an expectation to do more, but he was still very open to coming back, but he wasn't sure what they were going to do next. And he did have an undone feeling, but also he compared it to when you are getting over a relationship and you're starting to feel very free, unbothered by it, then the person knows to call the hour after the first good nights of sleep you had. I think that was a great reference because I'm sure this is something a lot of us can relate to, but with him it's obviously his relationship with Sony basically, and it didn't go very well, but he was able to come back for one more time to at least get some closure, which is great for Andrew Garfield. But then he went on to say doing No Way Home was beautiful because he got to treat it as a short film about Spider-Man with buddies, and the pressure wasn't on him, it was on Tom because it was Tom's trilogy ultimately. I think it was hard on him during his franchise, Andrew Garfield, because obviously the MCU was a whole nother thing at the time and still is, and Andrew Garfield wasn't a part of that, so when it came to Spider-Man all the pressure was on him basically, and it actually was. I remember when most people were just saying he wasn't a good Spider-Man after TASM 2 leading up to TASM 3, and the whole time it wasn't even him, it was Sony's doing in the background. And this similar thing actually happened with Spider-Man 3, where basically at first not many people liked Spider-Man 3 and they blamed Sam Raimi for it when really it was Sony's fault, not Sam Raimi's fault. So I can see that parallel that happened again, but with Andrew Garfield and Sony. But hopefully Sony has learned their lesson by now. Only time will tell. Anyhow, the pressure was on Andrew Garfield a lot during his franchise because he was carrying the movies, unlike the MCU where it's too big to fail essentially, and they have a lot of characters supporting each other, but in No Way Home there wasn't any pressure on him because again it was Tom's trilogy and Andrew Garfield and Tobey were basically support roles. He said that himself and Tobey were there to provide support and be as imaginative, have as much fun, and be as dumb as possible, which is great to hear from Andrew Garfield. He said that you have three people who feel ownership of the character essentially, but it was a brotherhood, and that showed in the final product. And I agree, I think it actually really did show in what the final movie ended up being. He also opened up a little about how being Spider-Man during his franchise's run took a toll on him and how different of a time it was versus now, and promises that weren't delivered, specifically with TASM 3 and what was being set up at the time and the fallout with the studio due to how naive he was, along with people taking advantage of everybody. Basically there's just a lot of issues at Sony, and I think we have all known this for a while, but now we are hearing about it from Andrew Garfield and he's basically reflecting on it, but I'm glad he at least got to come back and get some closure for his Spider-Man role. So now moving on to Tom Holland news regarding Venom. Basically Tom Holland was supposed to cameo as Spider-Man in Venom 1. Sony was into the idea of having Tom appearing in Venom, which is why they were teasing it, but ultimately Marvel Studios said nope and put a stop to it. Basically when the contract was signed, Marvel Studios was like, no, you aren't putting him in Venom, which was why the fallout happened between Marvel and Sony, where Sony very briefly took Spider-Man out of the MCU for probably 3 days until they renegotiated and came to a more satisfying deal for both sides. But Marvel had to allow the acknowledgement of each other's universes or let the universes somehow connect, which is basically why we got Venom in the MCU post-credit scene and also why Vulture was in Morbius. Honestly, I mean, you can call it smart or scummy in terms of Sony. I think it's both, to be honest. Basically Marvel is bending over backwards for Sony to keep Spider-Man in the MCU, which really sucks, but it is what it is ultimately. But in regards to the Tom Holland cameo in Venom, I think that was definitely a smart move on Marvel's part because instead of connecting the universes together, they're just basically in the same multiverse by having Venom visit the MCU briefly, and the MCU now has the symbiote, which is a plus for Marvel and which I'm sure they can use for a lot of different things besides Spider-Man's symbiote arc, but also as well a symbiote related event possibly where maybe they could have the symbiotes try to take over the Earth Earth or some crazy shit like that, or just have other symbiotic characters down the line. So with that being said, that's everything I got for you guys today. So if you are new to the channel and enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. If you already have subscribed, don't forget to leave your opinion on what we talked about today or your opinion on today's video in the comments below. I always read and respond to comments. Honestly, what do you guys think about the Tom Holland cameo situation? Do you think Marvel Studios made a smart choice by not allowing Venom movies to necessarily directly connect to the MCU, or do you think it would have been cool to see Tom Holland and Venom? Let me know down in the comments below. I think that Marvel made a smart move by fulfilling their contract, letting Venom go to the MCU, but without letting their movies directly tie into the MCU. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys want more of this type of content. Again, hope you have a good day and hope you enjoy the video. Until next time.